Welcome to the Living Consciously TV show, coming to you directly from Denver, Colorado, in our studios here. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth, and also your moderator. And our theme today is what is truth and how do we get to it? And today our show is what we call one of our pillar shows, and it happens to be about spirituality. And what we do on these shows is we don't have any guests. We just have our cast members, and we attempt to go a little deeper into some subject matters for everybody's benefit. So let me introduce you to our spirituality cast today. We have right in the middle there, Jane Eileen Cohen. She is our spirituality cast member, and she's joining us from San Diego, California. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. I'm glad to be here.
Great. And we have, to the right of her, we have Jim Gillette. He is also our spirituality cast member, and he's joining us from San Antonio, Texas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And then on the left, we have Jamie Lerner. She's also our spirituality cast member, and she's joining us from the beautiful Chicago, Illinois area. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
All right, so here's how the show will go. We're going to have three segments. Well, this is a good time to talk about the truth, isn't it? So the truth is, I have asked you before not to talk about technical issues, because if we have them, we know them.
Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes you don't.
So segment one is what we're going to do is we're going to talk just a little bit about what the Living Consciously TV show is all about. And we do that usually just for the benefit of our first-time viewers. And then in segment two, we're going to talk about what are the issues and the problems with getting to the truth. And in segment three, we will present to you some tools and also some modalities the cast have in their toolbox that they have either used for themselves or for their clients or others that help them get to the truth. So let's begin with segment one, which is what is the Living Consciously TV show is all about? Well, for me, what it's all about is really offering up a different menu than what commercial television and everything else that's going on out in the world serves up to all of us, which is mostly confusion, deception, manipulation, fear, and force, which, in my opinion, has been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. So what we are really about is about our subject today, our theme today, which is what we're about is the truth. So what we attempt to do is, as individual cast members and human beings, we attempt to be connected to ourselves on the show to show you, not just to talk to you or talk down to you, but actually show you what it looks like and what it feels like to be conscious and to be present in the moment and to be able to, for us, to tell the truth, our truth. All right, so with that, anybody would like to say anything else?
I can add a little bit, which is for me, what the show is about is tapping into the living live energy. So that's, to me, the guiding principle.
Okay, great. All right, so with that, let's just move into then segment two, which is usually starts with me asking a question. And the question I have for Jane today is, by not telling the truth, are we protecting ourselves, not having to deal with all the hassles and problems with telling the truth? But before you answer that question, we should probably clarify for our viewers, what are we talking about when we're talking about the truth?
Right. And for some reason, I don't like calling it the truth. I call it truth. And it has a difference in meaning for me. But to me, truth is objective reality. It is what is real. It's not about my truth and your truth. And I can explain what that means. I mean, my truth, when people say my truth and your truth, they're usually talking about their opinion or their idea. But what is true is they had it. So I don't want to go into a whole long thing about that. But at any rate, truth is clarity. It's accessed in present moment experience. It's transparency.
Okay, can we give our viewers an example so they understand the difference between what is an opinion or maybe even a judgment, I guess, and what does it look like and feels like when you're talking about objective truth?
Okay. Well, opinion is, I think such and such, and You're talking about your perspective. So you can say it's true that your perspective is whatever it is, but whatever your perspective or opinion or idea is may or may not reflect truth. It's true that you had it, but the content may or may not reflect truth. If it is connected to inspiration or direct present moment experience, then it's made itself past the walls of your defense system, connecting to some larger reality, and then you're accessing truth. And people can feel it. They can feel the inspiration. They can feel that it's on target. There's a feeling difference between when someone is just giving an opinion that really isn't connected to something, some thread of connected to the heart of reality. It's hard to describe it. At any rate.
Okay, so let me try it from a different point of view. Okay. All right, so if I say that I'm going to give two examples. So right now I'm in a television studio. Is that the truth?
Right. Yes.
Okay, and I'm doing this.
Right, and truth can be found. You can get real picky and down to nitty-gritties about.
And I'm doing this TV show called the Living Consciousness TV Show, and I have 3 of my cast members, and we're doing this entire program. So is it true? Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Yes, it is. So if I say there is a God, is that true?
Well, that's true for you.
Yeah, and the way I would respond to that, Steve, is first of all, I don't think what you might be talking about when you use the word God can be encapsulated with a word. But when you said, is there a God, like it implies it has an identity, I would, that set off a little thing to me like, gee, the way you're saying that isn't the way I would say it. If you say, is there God, and I could accept that maybe you mean, is there universal consciousness? Is there one thing? Then I could say yes. But any separateness within is what I take issue with. And by the way, I don't portray myself as one who resides in that isness all the time.
Something else about that is that when you talk about a generality like that, you're not likely to get to objective reality. There are certain things that people can access that feels more real, such as rather than saying there is a God, there are things that you can actually directly access, such as there is love, there is truth, there is principle. People have direct experience of that, and when you're connecting with that, you can feel it. There's a feeling, there's a difference in the feeling. So it depends upon how you're defining what you mean by God, really, I think.
Well, I think that's been discussed and argued for thousands of years. So I don't think we're going to resolve that one, but I just gave that as an example.
Yeah.
And by the way, the subject matter that you brought to the Spirituality Pillar Show, which is truth, it's been talked about too for hundreds and thousands of years and agreed on and not agreed on what is the truth. So let's move on to the question that I was asking you before the definition of truth is, by not telling the truth, are we then really protecting ourselves, not having to deal with all the hassles and problems with really telling the truth? Is that so?
Yeah, that is true. Truth penetrates people's emotional defense systems. It brings you into what is actually true, what's actually happening. And emotional defense systems are set up for the purpose of avoiding truth. Mm-hmm. Because people believe that the truth is against them. That's the problem. Well, of course, yeah, we're talking about the problem, so that's okay. People believe truth is against them, and so to a very large degree, they're manipulating and avoiding. And also, when you speak the truth, then you're likely to get entangled in something. It can be a transformational process, or it can be tapping into another person's. It can turn into a drama. It can turn into triggering each other's defense systems. And if both people are just intent upon winning, it can be a huge mess. So truth is powerful, and how you deal with it is really important.
I think there's a big difference, too, in asking someone what the truth is and what their truth is. And what I have found is when I'm interested in knowing what someone's truth is, I ask them what their truth is, not what the truth is. Because when someone asks you what the truth is, what are they really asking you? And it seems like a trap. They're asking you to confirm or deny something that they know to be real. And we have set up our children, and our society is set up in such a way that I think that people are clear about knowing when to tell the truth and when to not to tell the truth. But the question is, what is your truth? That seems to be a much more important question when trying to connect with someone and get a deeper understanding of what their actual experience is in the present.
Yeah, I think what's really important about that is what society usually means by the truth is some sort of stock idea, some external idea that's been passed down for generations that people feel that they have to adhere to, which is disconnected to present moment experience.
Right, so it's a setup. It's a setup. We're not really asking someone the right question.
Right.
And the question we are asking them, the answer we're getting is exactly what they should either be saying or not saying based on some outcome or consequence. So that is not even
for me, when we see, for me, I believe that a person's truth at its very core is the universal truth that we all share. But definitely, that's a difficult thing to arrive at in discussion. So already I'm adjusting in this call to where I want to refer to the truth as maybe my most authentic self that I have access to, that I can speak of like it's the truth. And this question that Steve had, do we sometimes avoid it, and do we, not give everything we have in order to sort of get along? And I think certainly I do in the world, in the business world, in relationships, whatever. I do believe people hold back and modify, and because they're sensitive, we are sensitive to the other person. I don't have to just give everything and every statement I make. So we can discuss it like, how do we all get along, and are we representing ourselves as our most authentic self? However, I believe in reaching the truth, we keep uncovering layers to find more and more of our authentic truth. So for me, it's almost two different things.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, because I believe that if we can get connected to our truth, and our truth, I believe, is within us, and whatever is happening, like this dialogue or this conversation or any other conversations that are going on in our lives, we are constantly know what our truth is. The choice is, are we going to acknowledge it? And it comes from our feelings and our emotions. Are we going to acknowledge it? Are we going to process it? Or are we going to just put it under the carpet?
Well, but there is a difference between knowing your truth. You can know your truth and choose never to share it. And the sheer knowing of your truth and living your life based on your own truth, that is as authentic as if you were to share it or not to share it. So a lot of times people ask you questions where you think they're asking you what your truth is, but they don't really want to know. And I think that we learn very quickly what to share in terms of who we are and where we are, and what not to share. But that doesn't mean that we're dismissing ourselves or our truth, and it doesn't mean that we don't have the clarity about who we are or where we are. It just means that we know better than to express that to someone who, quite frankly, is not really interested.
Well, but don't you think, Jamie, that we get ourselves into all kinds of trouble when we are trying to figure out how somebody's going to respond to what we're going to say?
I think that we don't, it's not about that. I think we can feel it. So people ask you all the time, how are you? You know who really is asking you based on how they're asking you, and if you're sensitive, like I'm a very sensitive person. I can feel somebody much easier than I can hear them. So if someone is asking me how I am, I can feel if they're really asking me how I am. And if they're really interested, I have a very easy time sharing that. And if they're asking me because it's just a nice, polite way of addressing me, I can also feel that. So I think that we learn. We learn who we can express our truth to, or who we choose to, and who we choose not to.
Okay,
Right.
well,
so
but
so I'm
that's
saying
fine.
that it's okay that we do that as beings in society. That's a very natural and perfectly okay way to be. Is you choose when you want to hold back, how you want to share. I mean, we couldn't get through the day without being able to do that. In
But
my opinion,
why are we holding
And-
back? I don't
But
understand.
I don't think it's
I'm
holding
sorry,
back.
it doesn't compute with me. Why are we holding back?
I don't think I don't think you're holding back. If you're making a choice not to express, I don't believe that there's holding back there. That's a conscious choice. That doesn't mean in any way that you're repressing yourself.
Right.
You are just choosing not to express yourself, and there's no resistance in that choice. If you are biting your tongue out of fear of consequences, that's different. That's a whole other way of being. So if your question, Steve, is do we walk around not expressing ourselves consciously because we are afraid that we are not going to be accepted, or we're more concerned about how we're going to be received? I think that that's another kind of a question.
Yeah,
So,
and
Yeah, I agree.
that was really my question.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I agree with the way Jamie portrayed that. We're choosing how much we want to, based
Yes.
on our sensitivity to how the question was asked.
Okay,
yes,
but
and that's our knowing that guides us to that. So, but okay, let's just assume that people are not connected to themselves, and then I think that poses a different issue, a very important issue, which is, are we forever holding back and not expressing ourselves? And I think that a lot of us are, if we're not connected to ourselves.
well, and I want to directly go into my next question, which is, so if we are not telling the truth, and I'm not talking about now all the awake and conscious beings on the planet. I'm talking about the majority, which are the unconscious and not awake humans. If we are in a relationship, okay, and let's say, so let me just go at it this way. So if we are not telling the truth, what are we doing?
We're telling people what they want to hear, which
is-
I think
which
is
is
a
what?
I don't believe it's a lie. I'm sorry. I don't believe it's not truth. I believe it is something that we've learned, and I think in many ways it makes us smart. That we,
Okay, so I'm going to give you a direct example from my own life because this is the only way I can get my communication across, okay, effectively. So I'm going to give you an example from when I was a teenager, okay? My mother always told me it didn't matter how old I was when I was a teenager, you got to be home by 11 o'clock, okay? And I knew that when I came home and it was after 11 o'clock, she would be standing by the door and she would be asking me 10,000 questions, where I was, what I was doing. And I chose not to tell the truth. I chose to lie because if I told the truth, I knew what was going to happen.
okay. And that was a conscious choice you made, right?
Well, I don't know if it was conscious.
Well, you're just saying you made the
we seem
choice
to
to lie
confuse.
through the
We
consequence,
seem to confuse a lot. I think conscious with consciousness. I made a choice to protect me because I knew if I told the truth, the next thing was going to happen is she's going to beat the heck out of me.
Okay. And that's the way this whole society is set up. Because when we actually do tell the truth, there are consequences. So we have learned pretty much very early on that in order to function successfully in this society, that we need to not tell the truth. We need to accommodate, and we need to tell.
That's right. That's right. So anything like that has anything like that happened to you?
Oh, okay, but I want to say something about that. It
Yes,
depends
all
upon.
the time. All the
What-
time.
Well, let's
Yeah.
share some.
So I just want to say something about that. It depends upon if you're in the driver's seat or you're not in the driver's seat. If you're putting yourself in the position of a leader or at the effect of someone. So if you're there having a lot of clarity about what's going on, and you can express yourself from that place of clarity rather than being at the mercy of what someone else is going to do, that is very, very powerful. That's you know, you could say a conscious or evolutionary step forward. And that's what those of us who are leaders in consciousness, that's what we're doing, is we're exposing truth in a way that's undeniable, that is basically redefining things.
And there's that concept of emotional intelligence, which includes a lot of empathy and understanding how things work. And so, Steve, I think I understand what you're driving at, but it's not black and white. I mean, there's an intelligence in knowing how to respond, and the objective criteria, the highest goal is to always just say everything that's the truth, is not emotional intelligence in living in a society. So that's my opinion.
But I think the question, but I think that the most important question out of this conversation is, can someone function in society and accommodate and still live their truth? And I think that sometimes gets tricky. So that's what we should be talking about. You know, how do we walk that line? How do we, you know, live our truth and express our truth and still accommodate and live successfully in this society? So,
well, it's a matter of following your inner guidance. I mean, it is a choice. You know, whether you're guided to tell the truth in any particular situation or not, whether it will really be for the highest good for yourself and for the whole situation. So telling the truth in itself is not a virtue.
No, it's not. As a matter of fact, I think it's way overrated. And I get into this conversation. Well, my youngest son goes to Georgetown. He's a senior, and he is very frustrated with my idea of truth, because he really holds truth to be something that people should be held accountable, and it's a principle. And I don't believe that at all. I think it's way, and I believe that we can have truth and still accommodate and live in this society. And so I think that certainly can be. So I think the truth is way overrated.
Well,
I like the way Jane said it. You know, if you have the highest good, if you're in tune with the needs of everything, yourself, the other, and you have a sense of caring and contributing, and there's an honesty that you offer. Doesn't mean you have to tell the truth in every detail. So I'm really agreeing with each way that Jane and Jamie are describing this, and it makes sense. It's like clear to me.
Okay, so what I'm experiencing right now is you guys are having a challenging time, again, to be with the negative side of this. And the reason I'm saying this is because, please tell me, how much confusion, deception, manipulation, fear, and force going on in the world
I
right
tried
now.
first. Let me just say, Steve, what I'm experiencing right now is you have an idea of what you think we're supposed to say, and you're you're accepting what we're offering. You know, if you ask it the right way, I'll reveal a lot about myself, and I have no problem with that. But I think you're missing something that we're trying to say right now. Now, maybe you bring it up a different way. We'll finally catch on to what you want us to address. But I'm not going to answer the way I think I hear you trying to drive us.
Well,
that's my truth right now.
I don't think there is anything negative about not telling the truth. I really don't. I don't think there's anything negative about it. That's my answer to you, Steve.
So Steve's original question.
Okay, so let me set up another situation then, real quickly. Okay, so in a relationship, one person is cheating on the other person, and the person that's cheating on the other person has been lying for months, maybe even years, about cheating on their wife or husband. So are you telling me, Jamie, that there is absolutely nothing wrong with that?
I'd love to address that question.
Please do.
Okay. I believe the person that has been cheated upon has known about it since it begun. And they have not dealt with their own truth about it. And they have allowed themselves to lie to themselves, and that's where the lie is. Not the act of being cheated on, but the act of knowing that something is occurring and not addressing it within yourself.
Beautiful.
And I would add to that
Beautiful.
that
There you go.
in
And
relationship,
that's the truth.
in relationship, if people have a choice of whether to go deeper into the relationship or to just sort of sail along the surface. That's as far as they can go, in which case they tell whatever is convenient for them to tell. Or if they really want to make the relationship deep and close and connected, then they reveal what is really true for the purpose of moving the relationship deeper. And I agree with what Jamie is saying, is that in that situation, both people are probably being dysfunctional. It's an interlocking kind of thing. There's a dysfunctional pattern happening, which each person, if they're really interested in truth, could work their way through. But both of them are most likely terrified of what the truth is, and they'd rather sort of hold on to the status quo or some way that they feel in control, in which case it doesn't work.
So I think
there's no victims here.
Yeah, so I
in
think
that
what you're really
situation
saying,
at
what
all.
you're really
Right, there's no
also
victim.
saying is that we do lie and we do deceive each other in order to protect ourselves, because it's all based on, why are we doing these things? Because of fear. You
Right.
know, the wife is fearing that if she asks the right questions, even herself, not alone her husband, about the whole subject matter, they're going to get divorced. And that's fear-based. That's never going to work,
Exactly.
will it?
Right, but that's her truth that she's not addressing. So it's not about someone else's truth ever. And you could go into any situation,
Yes.
bring up any example, and it would always come back to the person, not the other person. So
Yes,
no one
but-
lies to us. We know when someone's not telling the truth. And then the question becomes, how do we feel about it? How does that resonate with our truth? And how are we going to choose to act upon that for ourselves, about ourselves? That's the truth.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean,
Perfect.
as far as I'm concerned.
This is exactly what I was looking for.
Okay.
that it's,
Okay.
That's good,
All right.
Steve. You got what you wanted.
well, hopefully it's a win-win. Hopefully you're getting what you wanted. But
Oh no, I'm agreeing. It's easy. This is an easy conversation because there's a nuance, and I'm appreciating both Jane and Jamie, and I think you're striving for something. And if we can help you go in the direction with our own truth and make it a good show for the viewers, I'm fine.
I just don't want us to be pretending that all these things, like all these deceptions and lies and things that I'm trying to go there, that these things don't exist. They exist every day, every moment, all over the
Every single
world.
solitary day. But I think the problem is that we're always pointing the finger at someone else and holding someone else accountable for the truth instead of calling on ourselves to examine our own truth, to how that resonates with us, and then deciding based upon how we're going to choose to either act or react or whatever that is that's going to happen. So
I think that part of the problem here is coming into one's own truth. The difficulty with that is that people believe that the truth is against them. So if they make a limiting decision that they're not valuable, and that comes up in relationships a lot, then they're avoiding anything that might prove that they're not valuable, and won't access things that bring truth into the picture in that area. And so it always boils down to people believing truth is against them. So they don't want to find out what the truth is. So then there's all kinds of manipulation and stuff going on to avoid
but
truth.
sometimes it's not even that the truth is against them. Once they know the truth, they must do something with it for themselves. And so avoiding the truth allows people not to take responsibility. And this is
Exactly.
where I have a conflict with my son. He thinks every single person that is lying should be held accountable. And that's not true. It's the people that are
Well-
experiencing the lie, that's the person that should be held accountable.
Is
Because if
it-
someone is lying to you, you have a choice about how you are going to understand that, interpret that, respond to that, not respond to that. That allows you to choose, as opposed to pointing the finger and holding another accountable. No one else is accountable. We are only accountable. And we cannot really control how other people express themselves to us or lie or cheat or any of those things that anyone else is going to
That's
do.
true.
So,
That is true, but we can also respond. So,
but it's a choice. And people are
Right.
afraid that if they acknowledge that there is a problem that they are experiencing, then they feel that then they must make a choice to respond or must take action. And I think that's what the real fear is. That's why people really don't want to be true to themselves. That's where the fear lies.
Okay, I agree. Let's see
and
if we
let me,
can.
let
we
me,
can-
I
go
want to
ahead.
just trace, when you said all the lies and deceptions, my first thought was, I don't feel like I live in a world of lies and deceptions. It's
Yeah,
not on
good
my
point.
mind a lot. However, then I went ahead and identified how I can look at different things and think it's a bunch of baloney. And then it's up to me. Then that's the way Jamie's describing it. Then I look at myself, am I not accepting? Am I judging? How do I deal with it? So, but a constant pressure living among lies and deceptions really would put a lot of responsibility back on me if I felt that, so.
Yeah. I
And
agree with that. I'd like to say something to.
Every single day, I don't watch CNN because I feel like there is a lot of deception and a lot of negativity. So my personal choice is to not watch that and to choose to watch something it resonates with my truth. And so who cares what's out there? There's nothing wrong with the world. I think the world is filled with contrast, and whatever it is that's out there, everyone gets to choose what feels good to them. But we don't need to change anything. I mean, I think it's wonderful that this show is demonstrating something that's different than what is out there for people. So now people have another choice, which is so great.
I agree with you. Matter of fact,
but
there is
Steve,
nothing
I
we
wanna
can
say
do.
something
Have you noticed that we're completely powerless about what's going on out there in the world? We can't change
Yeah,
it.
but
The
I wanna
only
say
thing we can
something to you about
change
that,
is
Steve.
how we react to it, and how
Sorry.
are we willing to go inside of ourselves and do the things that Jamie and Jim and everybody else has been saying, which is look for your own truth. And when you're feeling something that something is off, or you're feeling that, oh, wait a minute, this is if I don't do something about this, that's not going to be me.
Right.
The
Okay,
true me.
I want to say something about this whole thing about lies and deceptions that you always talk about at the beginning of the show, and you feel as though if people don't acknowledge that they're afraid of truth. And I think Jim made a really important point, that the fact that lies and deceptions is such a huge thing for you out in the world, to me indicates what I call a limiting decision in you, in that the way you're interpreting and experiencing the world is reflected by some decision in you. I mean, you can find any vibration, any kind of thing out in the world, from the totally positive to totally negative, and it depends on what you resonate with. When you make a limiting decision in early childhood, then your whole focus is in that direction. That's how you define what reality is.
All right, so Jamie, Jane, I'm going to be completely disagree with you on that one, because we just got through Jamie telling you and telling the viewers and everybody else that if she turns on CNN, it's full of deception. This stuff exists. Matter of fact, the truth wouldn't exist if there wasn't a lie. One has
Steve,
to
your
exist.
interpretation gives you a problem with that. Jamie just doesn't turn on that channel.
I just don't turn it on.
Yeah, this sounds like something that's very big for you, that you're in a world of lies and deceptions. Well, maybe with your definition, we could all agree it exists.
So Jim,
but
are
then-
you telling me?
yeah.
Are you telling me that right now the banking industry is not full of lies and deceptions, and that's why we're having all the financial issues that we're having in the world right now?
Steve,
Are you
Steve,
telling me that?
Let me respond to Steve. Steve, of course I'm not trying to tell that to you, but
What are you telling to yourself?
You're bothered.
No, wait, Jim. What are you
Yeah.
telling to yourself, that it doesn't exist?
Jim,
It doesn't
must
exist?
I eventually agree with you?
You don't have to agree with me. We can
Okay.
continue to be connected and be friends, even if you disagree with me.
I live in what could be called an imperfect world. There's the banking industry, every organization, every seat of power, every individual, every part of this whole thing has parts that we could say are imperfect or don't reflect great truth. And there is
Or are just
lies,
frankly
deception.
corrupt.
Yeah,
just they're
corrupt.
corrupt, and that's
corrupt. Lies, deceptions,
Whatever,
all
it's
that
fine.
stuff.
It's
yeah.
all, that's all
But
true.
if we
That's
can agree that exists and then we can go
Yes.
on, let's do
But
that.
I'd like to say something about that, and it's not about being corrupt. I think everyone is going after what they believe to be their own self-interest, and a lot of that is not really doesn't really benefit them, and the world is constructed that way. And I think it's a part of the evolutionary process. It's not bad; it's dysfunctional, and it's not towards what will really benefit them, and it takes them away from what is. It's a way to avoid what they are afraid truth is.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I
so
think you're right.
it's-
And I think this
but it
goes-
cannot harm someone else. The only reason that you are harmed by what someone else is doing, whether it's the banking industry or CNN or whatever, is that you're letting your experience of reality be defined from outside of yourself. It is resonating with an unhealed issue in you, and you are leaning on that as your defining of reality.
Okay.
Okay, so
I have to just say, just really quickly, I think, Steve, that you're absolutely right, that there are all those things out there. And I think because people are so accepting of them, it truly perpetuates that cycle.
yes,
I mean, and
yes,
nothing,
people are
and
actually
nothing-
buying into that stuff.
Right.
And I'm not
Nothing
saying that Jimmy's buying
penetrates-
into that. Obviously, he's not that kind of a person.
No, but nothing penetrates that. So the thing that does penetrate it for people individually is the only thing that they have control over, which is the choice to either put their attention there or not. And if you can put your attention to the place which rings true to you, then you are able to live your truth in the world along with accommodating as you go. And I think that's that little fine line.
Okay, and here
So-
I'm going to give you
Yeah.
another example of it, because I used to be in the banking industry for 9 years, and when the banking industry was giving away mortgages, the only thing you had to do to qualify is to be able to hold this pen and sign your name.
That's right.
Okay, and people lined up, thousands, millions, hundreds of thousands lined up to do it, and they knew the truth was, now that the entire show is about truth, within themselves, I guarantee you they knew they couldn't afford it, but they
Right,
did
but
it anyway.
They didn't stay true to themselves. So
Yes.
I think that's a great example that it's really not the banking industry's responsibility. It's really not CNN's responsibility. It's the individual's responsibility to be true to themselves and to decide what feels best for them. But I think what we do is we use all these other things as an excuse to be the victim. We're the victim.
and
We're
I
the
would
victim of the
say
banking industry.
what-
We're the victim
yeah.
of CNN. We're the victim of the lies, all that other stuff. And I think that's not true. That's not true.
And what Jane said, I think I would integrate into that, and I'm agreeing with you, Jamie, is that everyone works with a degree of or all self-interest, but the evolution of consciousness, I believe, takes us closer to understanding that our self-interest includes others. And it's less, greed, smash and grab, take advantage, manipulate. And it's more, as the consciousness develops within us, the harmony with everything around us, all the forces around us, becomes more important for our own self-interest. I'm interested, I have a better life if y'all have a better life. And I mean, that's probably different from the scoundrels that Steve is talking about, where someone says, I have a better life if I can make, $20 million a year and I don't care who gets hurt. Those people have a way to go, I think. But if we feel our self-interest is tied to others in a harmony, then that's a good thing. And once again, I can live among people, I have to, that don't see it that way.
So
And that's
I'd like to
also a
tie this to the
judgment on your
subject of
part, though,
truth.
too. That's a judgment on your part, Jim, because that's your truth. And for
Hey,
you,
I
you just
would
made
agree.
a judgment.
And I tried to
that's-
say it that way. I
Yeah,
agree
because
that that's
for
my
other
model.
people,
That I
other
call
people,
that
Well,
they
my
have a-
model.
yeah, and I want to
Yeah.
loop
Oh,
back.
different-
I want to loop back to
No,
what
wait,
Jim
wait,
was saying.
I wanna
Hang
say
on.
something about this and
I
how it
want to loop
relates to
back.
truth.
I want to loop
I've been
back what
hanging
Jim.
on too long.
Hang on.
Yeah,
I want to loop back to
Jane-
what Jim was
Jane
saying. This is
tried,
important.
but she
Okay,
was
so
next in line.
so I know the kind of person you are, and I know that you're conscious, and I know that you're awake. However, you still have to live in this world that I was speaking about at the beginning of the show, which you guys want to crucify me for, which is the world out there is based on confusion, deception, manipulation, fear, and force, and it's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. So how do you live in that world, Jim? Because you have to go out and you have to go to the bank.
That's a question, I think, not just rhetorical. The way I do it, I try to find my own truth, and I don't hold others responsible for my own peace and contentment. I think, and specifically, I meditate every day. I do a bunch of things to find my center and find peace. Every person that has reached that is still living in the world you describe. We can reach a place of peace within while there's lies, deception, and all that stuff going on around us. It's really a matter of what we have within us.
And how do
and
So I
there
wanna
are so
address
many
this too.
choices.
So
Like
the-
once
okay,
you
Go ahead,
have
Jane.
Jamie?
trust-
Go ahead, Jane.
Okay, thank you. So I want to address this in relation to truth, because that's what we're talking about. And here now what we're dealing with, from my perspective, is a larger truth, an objective, larger truth that exists all the time, is in the infrastructure of everything that exists. So what people are talking about the lies, deceptions, and the world that people generally live in is not from a place of truth. It's from a place of avoiding truth. And truth is where you connect to the principles of what creates actual reality, such as truth, such as intelligence, such as consciousness. These are all things that are at the foundation of all real experience. And that's, I believe, the shift that the world is moving in the direction of. That's what the evolutionary process is all about. It's moving from a place of avoiding truth to a place of coming into truth. And so as a conscious person in the world where people are, to a large extent, avoiding truth, which is what I would call a substitute world. It's an alternative world that has nothing to do with truth. If you are connected to the larger principle of truth, objective truth, connected to direct experience, directed to love, to intelligence, to consciousness, and so on, it's like a plumb line that you can orient your experience around and relate to the truth within any situation, what is true. It gives you sort of a solid foundation to make sense of the world and represent something that is far more stable and solid and real. And from that place, you are in vibrational resonance with whatever is true external to yourself. You're not focusing on what isn't true, what is an avoidance of truth.
Okay, so you're really talking about navigating, and I think that we do. We have that ability. If we can identify for ourselves our truth, and we can be true to that. And also, when we establish preferences, we have all kinds of choices out there on a daily basis as we navigate which bank that we're going to do business with, which grocery store, what are we going to align ourselves with that really supports us in our truth. And I think that is the contrast of the world. I mean, it's wonderful that there is lies and deception and people are cheating and all this contrast is going on, because I think it really helps us to determine individually what makes sense for us. Now, sometimes it's not always so easy to execute that, because I think the kind of pressures that you're talking about make it difficult sometimes to stay true to ourselves.
Absolutely.
But I think that, yes, I think that there is nothing wrong with this world.
So how I dealt
Nothing needs to be fixed.
So how I dealt with that is I checked out of it 8 years ago. That's how I dealt with it. I checked out.
And that was choice.
That's the choice I made. I checked out of it. I says I don't want to live in that world, and I'm going to create something completely different and something completely beautiful. And I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna figure out who I really am. I'm still on that path, and I'm going to be connecting with people like you, all of you, and the rest of the cast, and all the other people that I'm connecting with. I created a network, you know, a radio and television network to do this, and that's how I live my life now. Is that I make a conscious choice who I do business with and where I do business, and that's not the way things used to be with me. I used to be part of that I was talking about at the beginning, and for some reason, Jane seemed to think that that's what I'm still doing, and that's not true for me.
I don't know what you're still doing. All I know is what you say on, you know, on the show.
Well, I say it
I mean,
because
in the show,
because if I
I'm
don't
responding to what
say
you're
it,
saying in the show.
because if I don't say it, it's going to sound like it doesn't exist. Somebody has to say it, and you guys are not willing to say it, so I have to say it.
I think you're missing the point here. I know that your general direction in your life is moving towards consciousness, and I've said that to you over and over again. But I think that there is what I would call a limiting decision, which is causing you to focus. It has to do with seeing other people as enemies. It has to do with thinking that those who are unconscious are in control and are victimizing other people. It's putting too much power there and it doesn't really exist like that.
Really?
Yeah, I think it does come from what we have within, because there's some people that can go through the world with all this stuff in it and just feel joy and happiness. And
Hello,
then another one.
That would be me. Hello.
Yeah, right,
Hi.
right. And like I say, that's 95% me. And then there's others that are just bombarded and they just take on the weight of everything they see. And the change, it occurs within. And so that's what as we work towards consciousness, if we say that, as consciousness grows within us, and this is my model, a decision, a judgment, whatever is what works for me presently, is that if I can become more centered and living in the present, and something I allow to come out that is a universal love and consciousness, my life is better, and I enjoy myself every minute of the day.
And I think that concept, I have to say, is a really tough one for people to get their minds around. And yet, it's so important that we really can make the choices to support that kind of a lifestyle, to feel good like all the time.
Right.
And that, I think, is...
Okay, well, maybe I'm not as evolved as you are, but that's fine. I'm willing to take
I think you're pretty evolved.
I'm willing to
You're
take
pretty
responsibility and accountability for that. That's fine.
Okay,
That's
but
fine.
I see you as being pretty evolved.
Not a problem. Not a problem. But I cannot close my eyes to, because we're talking about reality.
Well, you know what? I think we determine our own reality, to be honest. So I have to say that in my truth, I determine my own reality, and the way that I'm able to navigate in this world and stay true to me is to selectively sift, to really make conscious choices what I'm going to put my attention on. And that doesn't mean that I don't engage in conversation with all people. I do. But I choose the parts of the conversation that I'm going to internalize and the parts that I'm not going to internalize. Not that I'm going to control any conversation or control any environment, but simply I'm going to make choices for myself that allow me to stay true to me. And that's something that I think that we can do for ourselves.
So I have a perspective that I think perhaps relates both Jamie and Jim, and it has to do with where Jamie and I disagree. I mean, the whole thing that's sort of the impetus for doing this particular show is Jamie brought out that she and I have a different approach to truth, and here we are almost at the end, and we haven't talked about that. So I think that in relationships that matter to you, that you really want to get somewhere with, it is important to address what isn't working. It's important to address what I would call the limiting decisions to bring consciousness to it.
I disagree.
Yes. So Jane, I understand that.
I
so
disagree.
how do you do that yourself, please?
I disagree.
Because like I told you, I don't want this show to be about we're just telling people how things should be based on our opinions and perspective.
I'm sorry. I disagree, Jane.
Follow it up. Follow it up with an example, Jane, please. it's easy to be on the top of the mountain and just tell everybody, this is my experience of the world and how things should be. But
God, I do it all the time with you.
okay, well then give us some examples. Give our viewers some examples. What are you talking about? Because you speaking in general terms.
Okay, when you're in a relationship with someone and there is an issue within the relationship, your position is that you feel that the issue should be exposed. Is that what you're saying, Jane?
Jamie, are you in a relationship with anybody that you can give us an example? Or are you going to be general too?
Are you guys going to fight about what you want?
Okay, if I have an issue with someone, can I tell you something? I don't bring it to their attention, ever. If I have an issue with someone, it's very clear to me that whatever the issue is that I'm experiencing with someone else is my own issue. So I never bring that up with someone else. I bring it up with myself. I take 100% responsibility. So
awesome.
I don't believe that what Jane is saying, I don't believe that we have to get to the truth of every single issue when it comes to interpersonal relationships. I just don't.
This is more
I
about
agree with Jamie.
There's more. This is more about exposing to the other person where you are in relation to them. It's still about you, but it is far more vulnerable. It is putting out in the open where you really are, which is the truth. The truth is you are.
Where I really am is I'm having an issue with myself, and that's the truth. So if I'm in a relationship and I'm having an issue with someone else, what I'd like to expose to that person is I'm having an issue with myself. I'm experiencing something that has to do with
And you
me.
could do
relates
that.
to them.
And that's
Yes,
what I'd like
you
to
could
expose. I
and
wanna expose-
share.
Yes, but
Yeah,
I'm having an
that's
issue.
a relationship.
Right.
Yeah,
So, but
you
the
could
issues
share
I'm
that. Yeah.
a relationship with, I mean, that I have a problem with is me. I'm exposing myself having
If
issues
there's a
with myself,
problem,
not with
I
you.
like your 100% responsibility model. I do it the same way. If I feel something, it's me that I'm creating it. It's me, what I'm feeling. However, in a relationship,
I'm not arguing about that.
I think that if you and I were in a relationship, Jamie, I appreciate that you're going to take responsibility for all that. But I would also want you to share with me how it comes up, and then we could, and I'd try to do the same for you. So I think a relationship includes, or it can, the two people decide, sharing this stuff. But I agree, if I'm having a problem, it's within me. And I just take that 100%.
And that's how I share it. So I'm so sorry that you're feeling whatever you're feeling, and I'm choosing to take responsibility for it, and I'm going to address my own issue within myself that is affecting our relationship. And I think that's something that people have a choice to do, that they can choose to do that.
I agree. Navigating was a good word. I like that.
So, Jane, I've totally, obviously, to me, it's clear. It's totally important that you take responsibility for whatever you're feeling comes from you, but you still are having a response to the other person. If you don't reveal the response you're having, at the same time taking responsibility for your own issues, then the other person is sort of shut out of your whole process. They're shut out of how you're actually responding to them. And your response to another person probably is accessing some truth about them as well. The fact that you are triggered in relation to them.
That's not my job. That is not my job. That is so
I don't
not
think
my
you have
job
to
to add
reveal
to
that.
someone else's truth.
It isn't your
in that.
job.
I never do, and I would never do it. That has nothing to do.
You would never do what?
I would never access someone else's truth and share.
I'm not talking about that.
I would never share my reaction to someone else to enlighten them. Never.
It's not for the purpose of that. It's for the purpose of revealing where you are. So you're doing.
Yes, like I'm having an issue with myself. That's how I reveal where I am. But what you're saying is that somehow.
So why are you telling that person that? Would you tell them? Would you tell them that you're having an issue with yourself?
Yes, I would. I would say I am having an issue with myself.
This show is beginning to look like more like The View.
Yeah.
Well, it gives everybody watching a chance to identify with different parts of this, and hopefully it stimulates to them a little bit more self-reflection.
But I don't feel that it's my responsibility.
No, I'm not saying it's your responsibility. So you would say, I'm having an issue with myself in response to something that just happened in relation to you.
Yes, and no,
right.
not in response to something that has happened in relationship to us.
All right, ladies,
Not
Okay,
in
that's
relation
fine.
to you.
ladies,
Yes, in
it's-
relationship.
That's
this is
fine.
all the
I don't-
time we have for today. Thank you very much. Many thanks to all of our cast members, the entire crew behind the glass, and I just want to make sure that everybody remembers that you vote on our shows on channel 56, 57, and 219, and interact with us, of course, on our website at www.livingconsciously.tv. As well as, I just want to make an announcement that this is the last show of our second season, episode 13, and on April 21st, we are going to be starting actually season 3, and if it's anything like today, oh my God, watch out. And the cast will be in the studio live, so I'm looking forward to it. It's been an incredible show. I love you all, and
I love
we'll
you
see
all,
you. We'll
too.
see you on
I
April
love you
21st,
all, too.
2012. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.